Hi, Anne. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Stuck in one place, but otherwise good. Yeah.
Yeah, like everyone. But it's super nice to see you anyway. So again, for a little introduction to the people who are watching this interview, Anne is originally from Tennessee in the US. She has 15 years experience in Southeast Asia in tourism, and she has spent the last 10 years in Myanmar, initially working for a large regional travel company before setting up Myanmar Pure, a boutique tour company with a local friend in 2016. So over the years, they have been training and supporting small businesses in Myanmar to better welcome tourists and develop livelihood opportunities. So for example, they offered single mothers the opportunity to cook lunches for their visitors, or they also helped some local businesses, especially in rural areas, to improve their hygiene practices. She started riding a motorbike a few years ago and encouraged by her husband. And she led the Myanmar leg of the Women Riders World Relay in 2019. So Anne also likes to make an impact on people's life, and she would like to give a true picture of Myanmar to the visitors who come to this country. So when hearing about FreeW tour concepts and when I reached out to her, she got very enthusiastic at the idea of developing one Myanmar tour with me. And so she started looking out for some women guides and women riders to train there in Myanmar. So we'll probably do another call later on to discuss more about this trip. But right now, let's get to know Anne a bit more because she's a super interesting person that I've been talking with over a few months. And yeah, I'd like to share some perspective with you. So, Anne, my first questions for you. First, what made you move to Asia and then Myanmar? But most importantly, what made you stay in Myanmar? Because 10 years is quite a long time. So I understand that some people come to Asia, have a work experience, traveling, but then you stayed. So tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So thank you for the really generous introduction. That was very kind. But yes, I came to Southeast Asia first as a traveler, and very cliche, I fell in love with it. But I was offered a job to come back as a tour leader, and it just was the right time in my life to take a little break and come work in Southeast Asia. And I thought I would do 18 months, but after I finished that first 18-month contract, I stayed on and on and on and on, and I'm still here 15 years later. But the decision to move to Myanmar was partly work related, but personal. I had visited many times as a tour leader and with the job I was doing in Bangkok. And I just loved the country, but more importantly, I just saw from a tourism point of view so much potential. Yes, as a company to grow and make money, but also just to spread tourism. I felt this was a gem of a country and not enough people were seeing it. And also for the local population, not enough people were benefiting from tourism. And so that excitement of having a blank slate to work with really attracted me to move here and start develop new products. And it's still pretty much a blank slate. I mean, it is a massive country. There's a lot of areas not yet open to tourism, or areas where the infrastructure needs to be improved. And so that's why I stay, is there's just so much still going on. I've seen such positive steps forward in the last 10 years, and I feel like there's still many more positive steps to come in the near future.
Nice. So basically, like exciting destinations and lots of things happening, and the possibility to make a nice impact and strong impact in a country where everything has to be developed.
Exactly.
Oh, cool. So also you started, so Myanmar Pure at the beginning was, you were always into two wheels basically, but most of Myanmar Pure were more like bicycle tours. So you did a lot of bicycle tours. What made you switch to motorbike?
Yeah, so the bicycle touring came about mostly because of my business partner. He was a really keen cyclist, and I also enjoy it a lot. And we saw that going by two wheels in Myanmar meant that you got on better roads, not in terms of nicer quality roads, but better roads in terms of scenery and being away from the traffic. Um, I started riding a motorbike, but a little scooter, when I was living in Vietnam, and never really had the confidence to get on a big bike. I wanted to, and I rode on the back of my husband's bike, who was my boyfriend at the time, on the back of other friends' bikes on multi-day trips, and just got tired of the backache and the headache of sitting on the back of a bike. um, and frankly, was just getting a little bit fed up with my husband's aggressive driving. No, I'm just kidding. But I was apprehensive. I'm not a particularly big girl in terms of strength, and I was afraid to get on a bike that was bigger than a little scooter. And I think I just needed someone to say, get over yourself, you can do this. And people had told me that before, but we went out to quiet back roads, and I got on the bike and found it was much easier than I thought. So it was a lot of his encouragement. It was a lot of my own head, just getting over that hurdle of, it's a machine, you can control it, just like anything else. So once I did the first ride of just a 3-hour ride, I was just hooked. And ever since then, if we're going to go 2 people on one bike, he's on the back and I'm on the front.
Yeah, good move. Yeah, no, I totally get it. I think that as a woman, it's more like psychological, where they say, oh, it's big, you look at it and it seems, and but it's just a question of habit of getting onto it and just try it. And you're right, getting a lot of encouragement and seeing other women as well ride bikes. So I know as well in Asia or Malaysia, some of Malaysian lady riders, they said at first they didn't think they would do it, but then they saw some girls actually riding and they thought, oh, actually if she can do it, why can't I, and
Sure,
then
I
that
have to say
motivated
that was
me.
one other factor in it, is I had a friend, same age, same height, same build, and she just jumped on a massive, Yamaha something one day in front of me and drove off. And I was like, okay, if she can do it, then I know I can do it. So yeah, like you said, also being surrounded by or starting to know women who ride really also encouraged me to do even more.
And it's a little bit faster than bicycling as well, slightly less tiring. You can go a little bit further away, that's the thing as well, right? So tell me a bit more about, so during the Women Riders World Relay, so you managed to put together a team of Burmese lady riders, which I think was quite a challenge in itself at the beginning. But you also shared with me that it was a real challenge to actually get them to come with you without, male support or technical support or whatever. There was a kind of a little bit of blockage, or I don't know if it's societal, do we say societal, or economic, or can you tell us a bit more about that experience of, getting some Burmese lady riders with you and the
Sure. So
challenges?
I reached out to loads of friends, and no one really wanted to join. And then I managed to convince a good friend to come. And then through some actual social media promotion, we found 2 other ladies. So there's 3 Myanmar ladies and myself. But yes, right away, the first question was, well, who else is riding with us? And I explained this is the point, it's women riders. And they were very hesitant, and actually 2 of them refused to come unless we had male support riders with us. That, I mean, in processing it and talking with them and the whole experience, I think it's twofold. I mean, it is a cultural thing, not just for women, but Myanmar is about community. If you live alone or work alone or travel alone, male or female, that's unusual. So it's a very, very social and community-based country. So doing a solo trip, male or female, is unusual to start with. And then, yes, I mean, there were some safety things that the women felt more secure having male riders with them. And that's because we were going on roads that were more rural, where they didn't perhaps know anyone in the towns where we were going. We were going to avoid being on the road at night, but because it was rainy season, we thought we might be riding sometimes in the dark after hours, and they've just felt more secure to have male experienced riders along with us. So we ended up being the 4 ladies and 2 men, although at one point we had 6 men with us for a couple of hours who were just from a nearby town that wanted to join with us. So yeah, the safety issue was probably the main driving factor behind it. But definitely none of them, I asked them, would you ever go on a solo motorbike trip? And they all said no. Very quickly, quick no.
Okay. And I was also thinking it's interesting because so from your perspective, do you see any difference when you ride with mixed groups or when you ride with women only, like outside your Burmese experience?
I'll go back to the Burmese experience quickly, as the two men that rode with us were very good friends of one of the girls, and they were amazing. They let us set the pace. They really were kind of shadows, if you will. So that was wonderful. We had the right dynamic with those men joining us, that they really sort of took a back role and let us do our thing. In terms of mixed group versus all female groups, I have more experience in that in cycling, to be honest. But I generally find that as an all female group, there's a little bit less pressure, just in the way that when you're getting ready to get on the bikes, I feel that there's just a bit more fun in the air. Whereas when you're in a mixed group, maybe it's myself, I just kind of have a little bit more of attention of what's going on over there, like checking everything else out rather than focusing on my own bike and myself. When I'm with women riders, which I've only done a few motorbike trips with all women, I feel like it's just a bit more relaxed. And whether that's in my head or that's reality, I'm not really sure.
No, actually, I felt it too. And, as I discussed with you as well before, I do love riding with guys, and I've always rode with guys, and all my adventure trips that I did in the Himalayas were always with guys. But still, I realized exactly like you that sometimes there's a little bit of pressure of, going a bit faster, going to the next town, there's less like enjoying of the moment and chilling out. And when I rode with my Malaysian girlfriends, like we're more in the moment like than racing, and I definitely feel that even if I like speed and I like to ride and don't spend too much time getting ready or whatever, still I can feel in the atmosphere is a bit different. So no, I feel you. I think it's a reality how we experience it, at least. So I was keen to understand if it was the same for you. And so speaking of women in Myanmar, you've been there for the last 10 years. And I know for a fact I've been to Myanmar as well, like the country has been changing dramatically over the last years. Have you seen any specific changes as well in terms of the women's status or what they can do, what they can't do? And have you seen any changes in particular related to women in Myanmar?
Sure. I mean, women in general in Myanmar have always had a really strong place in society. They're very well respected, especially in the household. And of course, Aung San Suu Kyi is the country's leader. She's been their sort of icon the last 20 years. So women are respected here. It's a very general statement, but generally very respected. And even since the 1930s, they've had voting rights. So Myanmar was actually very progressive until the military regime in the late 1960s. But there are still defined gender roles, especially in the workplace. And even though legally women are supposed to get the same pay as men, there are big disparities in the pay as well. So that's probably the biggest change in the last 10 years I've seen, is women taking on much more leadership roles in corporate companies, or doing jobs that before were male jobs. There's many more women in the government now, and women entrepreneurs, which there's always been, ladies running the small street shop selling, the instant noodles or the, pancakes. But now there's a lot more women actually moving into the financial sector or education sector as entrepreneurs. And I think that is a combination of just a general societal shift caused by international media. And I think it's also a bit natural. I mean, that women were eventually going to move into this role in Myanmar. The one other thing I think that's there's been a lot of change happening is these laws that are in place for gender equality in the workplace and equal pay. They weren't enforced before. So now they're starting to be enforced. We've had all these laws saying that women can do this and women and men are treated equal, but it wasn't really enforced on the previous government. And now we're starting to see a lot more legal action being taken to make sure that women are seen as equals in society.
Okay, that's interesting. I think it's true. I wanted to bring up that questions because I think a lot of people who don't particularly know Asia, we see Asia as a, a single area with lots of similar countries. And but yeah, when you think about it, the status of women is very different from one country to another. And Myanmar makes me think a little bit to Philippines. You think of the Philippines, it's a little bit the same. It's like it's more common to see women at the top, and they are much respected, and as head of household, and so on. So that's interesting to see that the level of, how to say, economic development is absolutely not linked to the level of social development sometimes.
Right.
and I'd be curious to know as well, so what are the questions that you are being asked most often by Burmese people as a foreign woman in Myanmar?
Well, I was single for the first 7 years I was here. And so naturally the first question was, are you married? This is a very common Myanmar question, is, are you married and how old are you? And then generally something to the effect of, how much do you weigh? And it's not a rude question, it's just a general question. So when I was single, that was always a big shock, that I was a single woman with a job and a career living in Asia alone. And then it would always be like, aren't you afraid, or don't you miss your family? But now that I'm married, and I mean, even since I've been dating my now husband, the most common question I get is just like, do you like it here? Myanmar people are so hospitable and they just want to make sure you're happy. And so it's always, are you happy here? Do you like it here? Do you love our country? You know, things like that. And then, why do you love our country? So it's, yeah, I don't get any negative comments on why are you here, or what are you doing, or it's always very positive and generally very much wanting to make sure I'm happy living in Myanmar.
Yeah, it's funny because I really experienced the same thing in Malaysia, and I find it very paradoxical sometimes how usually people in Asia are quite, they don't really speak out too much. There are lots of taboo in, society and things like that, and they can be very prude on certain things. But exactly like you, like I take a taxi, and the taxi would ask me if I'm married, if I have children, how old I am, how much do I pay my rent, how much do I earn, and I'm like, really? What's this kind of questions? That's very paradoxical, I find.
Sure.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Motorbike as well. They stop and they ask, firstly, are you riding alone? They're looking, where's the second person? And then the second question is, how much did your bike cost?
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, indeed. So speaking of bikes and riding, because that's also the main topic, if you could describe riding in Myanmar in 3 words, just 3 words, and then you can develop a little bit and explain why, but just 3 words.
Okay, the first word would be, I'll give you some explanation afterwards. I would say diverse. The second word would be maybe like authentic. And the third would be unexpected. So diverse because like the landscapes just change dramatically 1 hour to the next, which is one of the wonderful things about riding in Myanmar is, you're not on the endless highway road where it feels the same. Every hour or so there's a big shift in landscape. Authentic because just of the nature of the people mostly, and that's why my company was called Myanmar Pure, because it's pure, it's untouched. When you're riding through villages and you stop, people are authentically welcoming you there. It's not put on, it's not fake, hospitality, it's genuine. And third one was challenging just because, it's rural and remote, and when you pull over on the side of the road and you want a snack, sometimes there is nothing there. You know, you don't have 7-Elevens on every corner, or even necessarily clean shops that are going to serve you fried rice. So, you know, packing properly and preparing for the random rainstorm that's going to delay you by 2 hours, or the road that shows on Google Maps and is actually not there, is challenging. But that's what's fun about riding motorbikes, and I know it's the same in every country. I think that the fun thing with the challenges here is that it's very easy to overcome. Even if you don't speak the language, people are going to help you, and you use your hand gestures and you get what you need, in terms of petrol or getting to the next village. But that challenge is good, and it keeps you fresh. And I mean, even on the shortest bike trip here in Myanmar, you know, your trip might be delayed by 30 minutes because there's cows on the road, or, you know, a bridge is being repaired, or there's a village festival and they block the roads off. So it's a fun challenge, but there is definitely a challenge to riding here.
Yeah, that makes me think of a challenge I had once in one of my trips in the Himalayas. The challenge was that there was just a road slide, like it was just blocked, and for like 4 hours we were just standing there, and just waiting for to be able to go past the road, because there was
And
just
probably
a
not getting
landslide,
any
just a
information about
landslide.
what.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the same time, those are also, strangely enough, I think that's when you have those challenges that they stay the best memories, because that's the time where you stop, you don't have choice, and you just have to, find ways to divert, to do things, to talk to people. That's where you actually stop and pause and think and just enjoy the moment and observe the little things happening. And that's what stays in your mind. I mean, if I think of some of my trips, like that's one of the things that I remember most.
Mm,
So I find it
absolutely.
quite interesting, and that's why I love traveling also of the beaten track, because that's where you experience those kind of meaningful moments.
Sure. I mean, I think sometimes when you do road trips in this state, it's just so boring because everything works the way it should. You know, you're going to get on a good road. There's petrol stations every 20 miles, and there's, you know, everything you need is right there. It's almost too easy. And that's not fun. So these challenges, like you said, they can be frustrating, but at the end of the day, they're the best part of the trip.
Yes, exactly. So looking forward to traveling again, and
Yes.
yeah, I can't wait to. So we have some dates for Myanmar next year, obviously, but yeah, let's see how it goes. Like, I'm still hopeful and crossing my fingers that we can all travel by then. So yeah, anyway, thanks so much for your time. It was great catching up with you
Thanks for
again.
arranging this. It's good fun. And I
Yeah.
hope that some people are interested in riding with you and then riding in Myanmar, because I think this all women's motorbike trip is going to be excellent whenever it does happen.
It's gonna
Hopefully
be
next year.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for your
Speak to
time.
you
Bye.
soon. See you, and